Braunschweig, Germany, the birthplace of Volkswagen. For decades, this city symbolized German engineering excellence, precision, reliability, trust. But in September 2015, that trust shattered. The world discovered that Volkswagen, one of the largest automakers on the planet, had been lying. Not about minor details, about the very air we breathe. Volkswagen had installed software in millions of diesel vehicles designed to detect when the car was undergoing emissions testing and turn full emissions controls on only during the test. On the road, these vehicles emitted up to 40 times more nitrogen oxides than standards allowed. 11 million cars, across 29 countries, all programmed to cheat. This is the story of Dieselgate. The environmental fraud that cost Volkswagen over $30 billion, destroyed careers, sparked global outrage, and revealed how far a company would go to dominate the market. And 9 years later, the former CEO finally faced trial for his role in the deception. Before we dive into one of the biggest corporate frauds in history, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. This story will shock you. It started with an ambition. In the early 2000s, Volkswagen set an aggressive goal: become the world's largest automaker by 2018. But there was a problem: the American market. Americans loved big cars and trucks. Diesels had a reputation for being dirty, loud, and sluggish. Meanwhile, stricter U.S. emissions standards made it nearly impossible to sell diesel vehicles profitably. Volkswagen needed a breakthrough. Enter Martin Winterkorn. Winterkorn became CEO of Volkswagen in 2007. He was known for his obsessive attention to detail and his single-minded focus on making VW number one. Under his leadership, Volkswagen launched a massive marketing campaign: Clean Diesel. EcoI. The promise was revolutionary: diesel cars that were powerful, fuel-efficient, and environmentally friendly. Better than hybrids. Better than everything. By 2009, Volkswagen was selling TDI, turbocharged direct injection, diesel vehicles across America, claiming they met strict EPA emissions standards while delivering superior performance and mileage. Car buyers loved them. Environmental groups praised them. Volkswagen sales soared. But behind the marketing, engineers faced an impossible challenge. They couldn't build a diesel engine that was both powerful and clean within budget. The technology required, called selective catalytic reduction, SCR, was expensive and bulky. So they made a choice. They cheated. By 2007, the use of defeat devices was well recognized, and the European Union banned their use during emissions tests. But Volkswagen engineers were aware of and adapted a variant of cheating software that Audi had developed as far back as 1999. The software worked brilliantly. When a car was stationary, with the front wheels moving and the rear wheels still, the telltale sign of a laboratory emissions test, the defeat device activated. The engine would run in a special test mode, reducing nitrogen oxide (NOx) emissions dramatically. But the moment the car hit real roads, full power, full pollution. Up to 40 times the legal limit of NOx, a toxic gas that causes respiratory problems, heart disease, and premature death. Volkswagen deployed this software in about 11 million cars worldwide, including 500,000 in the United States, in model years 2009 through 2015. For 6 years no one knew. Or did they? The discovery came from an unlikely source: a non-profit organization. In 2013, the International Council on Clean Transportation, ICCT, commissioned the West Virginia University Center for Alternative Fuels Engines and Emissions to test on-road emissions of diesel cars sold in the U.S. The researchers were curious. Why did European diesel cars pollute more than American ones when they had the same engines? They tested 3 diesel vehicles: a BMW and 2 Volkswagens, a Jetta and a Passat. The BMW passed. The Volkswagens didn't. U.S. researchers at the University of West Virginia discovered that certain VW diesel cars emitted up to 40 times the permissible levels of harmful nitrogen oxide when tested on the road. The researchers were baffled. They double-checked, triple-checked. The numbers didn't lie. They alerted the EPA and California Air Resources Board, and the investigation began. For over a year, Volkswagen insisted the discrepancies were technical glitches. Engineers claimed it was a calibration issue, a software bug, anything but intentional fraud. But regulators kept digging. Finally, in September 2015, faced with overwhelming evidence, Volkswagen engineers admitted the truth. There was no glitch. It was designed that way. On September 18, 2015, the EPA issued a Notice of Violation of the Clean Air Act to Volkswagen AG, Audi AG, and Volkswagen Group of America. The scandal went public. Within hours, Volkswagen's stock price plummeted. VW's stock was sold off enormously on Monday, September 21, 2015, resulting in the loss of $16.9 billion of its market value. On September 21, 2015, the EPA announced that Volkswagen Group could face fines of up to $37,500 per vehicle, about $18 billion in total. 3 days later, on September 23, 2015, Martin Winterkorn resigned as CEO, but insisted he knew nothing of the scam. But prosecutors didn't believe him. The central question haunting the scandal: how high did the deception go? Were engineers acting alone? Or did leadership know? Evidence suggests Winterkorn was warned. On May 23, 2014, an engineer named Gottweiss wrote a memo about the West Virginia study, which was forwarded to Winterkorn the same day as part of his regular weekend reading materials. The memo was explicit. A thorough explanation for the dramatic increase in NOx emissions cannot be given to the authorities. It stated, adding that authorities would likely investigate to see if VW used a defeat device. Winterkorn received it, read it, did nothing. Then, in July 2015, 2 months before the scandal broke, a critical meeting took place. According to legal filings, the meeting with Winterkorn delved into detail about the company's misbehavior. An unindicted co-conspirator presented certain technical aspects of the defeat device and warned attendees of the potential severe consequences to VW if regulators discovered the cheating. A slide in the presentation raised a disturbing prospect. Indictment. Winterkorn was there. He knew, yet he did nothing to stop it. Why the silence? Because VW's corporate culture rewarded obedience, not honesty. Pressure from the top was intense. VW's 25-page code of conduct seemed irrelevant when contrasted with management's autocratic leadership style and single-minded goal to succeed at any cost. Engineers rationalized their actions. They knew that in the 1970s, VW engineers had installed defeat devices that allowed the company to cheat on emission standards, and the consequence then was minimal, a mere $100 to $20,000 fine. If caught, the punishment would be light, they thought. They were catastrophically wrong. The consequences were devastating. In January 2017, Volkswagen agreed to plead guilty to 3 criminal felony counts and pay $8 billion in criminal penalties. In separate civil resolutions, VW agreed to pay $5 billion. The company allocated nearly $7 billion to address the costs and agreed to spend up to $7 billion on settlements and reparations. Over time, the fraud cost VW around €30 billion in fines, legal costs, and compensation to car owners, mainly in the United States. But the human cost? Immeasurable. Toxic nitrogen oxides contributed to respiratory illnesses, heart attacks, premature deaths. Thousands of people harmed by pollution they were promised wouldn't exist. For years, Martin Winterkorn avoided accountability. He was criminally indicted in the United States in May 2018 on charges of fraud and conspiracy. But he never set foot in America. He remains a fugitive in the United States and is wanted by the EPA on charges including conspiracy to defraud the United States. In Germany, attempts to bring him to trial were repeatedly delayed. Health problems, legal maneuvering, endless postponements. Finally, on September 3, 2024, 9 years after the scandal broke, former Volkswagen chief executive Martin Winterkorn appeared in court in Braunschweig, Germany, on fraud charges. The criminal charges against Winterkorn include fraud, market manipulation, and unlawful false testimony before a parliamentary committee. In a lengthy statement, Winterkorn described how he headed a sprawling corporate empire, had numerous responsibilities, and was far removed from detailed decision-making. "I am not an engine developer, I am not an emissions control specialist, and I am not a software expert," he told the court. But prosecutors argued otherwise. The principal charge relates to about 9 million vehicles, with buyers facing financial losses running into hundreds of millions. If convicted, he could face up to 10 years in prison. Then, just weeks into the trial, the court suspended proceedings due to Winterkorn's poor health. The court canceled all continuation dates and explored a restart in the first part of 2025. Justice delayed. Again, the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal wasn't just about broken laws. It was about broken trust. A company that promised a cleaner future while poisoning the air. Engineers who chose deception over innovation. Leaders who prioritized profit over people. The scandal had a profound impact on the industry, leading to significant changes in diesel car production. In response, Volkswagen invested 50 billion euros in electric vehicle development, accelerating the industry's shift towards electric vehicles. But the damage was done. To the environment, to public health, to the credibility of an entire industry. As one business professor noted, when pressure, opportunity, and rationalization are present simultaneously, we often see employees act unethically. Dieselgate proved that even the most respected companies can fall when ambition drowns out ethics. If this investigation opened your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the scandals that changed the world. Drop a comment. Should Winterkorn be held accountable? Let us know. Thanks for watching.